On this show, we have Hearts of Champions, as well as borrowing the NBA and NBC song for 28 seconds to not break the 30-second rule. With that being said, welcome to the Tom Greene podcast. We are doing NBA once again, and we'll be doing some more content with Michigan Lions soon. But right now, we got NBA content, and we have a guest with us, and he is one of the weird people that I went to school with. Yes, he is kind of weird, but he is funny. He was,
my moments.
And it was. I should tell you, personal note. Some of these guys I get the show on with and go to games with, I met because I simply sat next to them in class. This is kind of how Ben Probst, who is our guest, and I met. Am I correct, Ben?
You're absolutely right.
Because I used to sit by Austin Greenwald in that class, and then all of a sudden you took that seat, and lo and behold, we shot together, and there you go. We have an NBA show with is it Adcot 5130?
Yeah, that's correct. It stands for a different kind of truth. It was the last. I'm a huge Van Halen fan, so that was the acronym for their album. So that's all that was. Yeah, huge Van Halen fan, diehard Van Halen fan. 5150. That was the name of one of their albums back in the 80s with good old Sammy. So it's.
And if you guys know Ben Probst, which you will get to through this show, he is the voice of a different kind of truth. So his Twitter reflects his personality, which let's admit it, we both are George Costanza from Seinfeld. He is a Seinfeld fan as well.
We really are. We stick to the opposites.
So, with that being said, we have some shout-outs to give out on this NBA show, and not quite NBA people, but people who I have met recently and are listening to this show because I've simply tagged them on Twitter because they've met me. My first shout-out is to Audra Martin, who I've given a shout-out on this show before, but on the 3PS Mag version. I tried to get her on the Viking show, but she literally said she didn't think she knew enough, but that's all right. I gave her some business cards to branch out to some of the people from Minnesota. It was great to see her again from Fox Sports North. She does a great job for the Twins, so give her a follow at Audra_Martin. So, again, Ben, I talked to some interesting people.
Yeah, that's. I know it's Matt Shepard, right? Voice of Michigan basketball.
Yes, that is our next shout out, Matt Shepard. I went to the doubleheader Tigers-Yankees, and I got to see him very quickly before the start of the first game. I said hi to him, told him a little bit about the show, gave him my business card at Shep Matt on Twitter. Great guy, great personality, Matt Shepard. Next up is Heather Park, the Comerica in-arena host at HP Heather Park. HP like Hewlett-Packard, but I doubt she's worked for Hewlett-Packard. But she's done some she's done some commercials for Northwestern Tech. So it's possible she could get hired with Hewlett-Packard, but who knows?
Absolutely.
If she's listening, it would be cool if I got her on the show to talk like the life of an in-arena host / new stuff for Comerica Park for the next season, so maybe I could get her on the show at some point as well. Next up is Meredith Marakovits from the New York Yankees. I got to meet her before the first game, Tigers-Yankees. She is at M_Marakovits. That's spelled Marakovits. Meredith Marakovits. She does a great job for the New York Yankees. So, another shout out. And the final shout out, last but not least, he is Trevor Thompson at I am Trevor T on Twitter. I got to meet him at the Tigers-Twins game as well.
That's awesome.
And also Shep, Trev, as well as Tori Petrie, who I've talked about before on this show, are at the Michigan Television Emmys tonight. Matt and Trevor and Tori have been nominated for Emmys. I forget which ones they actually were, but the Emmys are tonight, so good luck to them, and hopefully I might be able to send a tweet out for congratulations to one or all of them, perhaps. So, those are your shout-outs: Audra Martin, Heather Park, Trevor Thompson, Matt Shepard, Meredith Marakovits. Ben, I talked to a lot of people, don't I?
That was a heck of a list you got there. I mean, Trevor Thompson, gotta love him. I mean, all the pre games for the Red Wings and the Tigers, and
yes,
and
I might have to get him on the show for those.
Wow, just quite a list you got there, man.
Sometimes I blow people's minds away in a positive way.
Extremely positive way.
So that being said, moving on to NBA stuff, which we are actually going to talk about some basketball here on this show. My first question for our expert analyst, Ben Probst, with the expert being like Chris Farley, the norm quotes, maybe.
Right, or expert extraordinaire. I'll go with that title. That might work.
Well, anyway, we talk a lot of NBA, so we're going to talk NBA on a professional level here. What's next for our champion, Golden State Warriors?
Oh, that team. Lovely, yes. Just got to keep winning. I mean, they have, Durant's going to be a free agent this year, but this summer, but let's face it, he said he's not going to re-sign with anybody else, so he's gonna be there for the time being. I think Bob Myers, the GM, said we'll give you whatever amount of money you want. Draymond Green's going to be under contract for the next couple years. I mean, Steph just got that massive contract last year, and Clay's in for next year. I mean, there's a rumor out there. Everyone it's more of a joke that people have mentioned that LeBron might sign with Golden State, and if that happens, and as much as I love my Pistons, the reason I'm a huge NBA fan, I might just completely give up and just I might completely give up. But for the most part, and being realistic, that's really what's next for them. I mean, they're going to be a free agent destination for people, for the veterans minimum. People are going to want to come there and saddle up with that team, and because unless something insane happens, which was going to happen, but it's going to be even more insane with potential super teams that team up. They're more than likely going to be the champs next year. So there's really not much they need to do next year.
So I found a clip here that I'm going to play. It describes what you answered quite well.
Hey, Mr. Grumpy Gills. When life gets you down, you know what you gotta do?
I don't want to know what you gotta do.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just
keep winning, just keep winning.
What do? We swim.
Dory, no singing.
I love to swim.
Dory.
When you want to swim, you want
See, I'm gonna get stuck.
So pretty much just keep winning.
As quoted by the Ellen DeGeneres fish.
Exactly. My thoughts on Golden State now. I agree. Just keep winning because that's what they're doing. There's no way in hell that they're going to get LeBron, and I don't think they want LeBron because LeBron wants the ball. That's what he does. He wants the ball too much, just like Melo. And if you get one of those guys on that team that do not want to distribute the ball, it's gonna evaporate that team very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they don't need him. They simply. I mean, and I don't even think LeBron would even want to do that because he already had to, build back a lot of good faith by going back to Cleveland. So all that's going to do is, make him even more hated than Kevin Durant already is, because he still gets a lot of flack, which, some of it is deserved about him hitching his ride onto a 73-9 team. So if LeBron does that, it'll never happen.
Yeah, and of course on my second ever NBA show, I'm not going to accuse LeBron of being a ball hog, because it seems like that's what I'm saying, but that's not really the case. It's just, when LeBron gets the ball, he wants to shoot, he wants to do everything he can with it, which any NBA player wants to do that anyway, but
absolutely.
I just don't see him fitting with Golden State. A rumor that I did hear that I would almost like to see is in a couple years, Anthony Davis. The Pelicans, yes, they got to the second round of the playoffs without Boogie, but at some point, AD is going to want to win. And if the Pelicans are down quote unquote, still.
Right.
Perhaps AD may want to join Golden State and win that championship. But I must ask the question, and I know my answer to this. Golden State, do you consider them a dynasty?
I mean, three championships in 4 years that speaks for itself. I mean, and I think, don't quote me on this, but I think the team hasn't done that in almost 30 or 40 years. I mean, that is not even when you think of dynasties. The Lakers in the 80s didn't do that. Celtics didn't do that. In the 80s, I think they might have earlier on in the 60s. The Bulls, who each time won. I think
that was the one I was thinking you were forgetting is the Bulls of the 90s. Now they didn't win until Michael Jordan got Scotty.
Air Jordan, yes.
But if I'm correct, I think they won 3 straight.
Yes, they won 3 from 91 to 93. Then he retired, quote unquote, to play some baseball, and that's when Houston won in 94 and 95. But then when he came back, they won. They had the 72-10 season and that was the best record of all time until Golden State overtook that in 2016. Mm-hmm. And then won in 97. That was the championship with the flu game, and then the pass to Steve Kerr. Speaking of which, yes, game-winning shot to beat Utah, and then of course 98, MJ hit his own shot to win. So they did 2 3-peats. 91, 92, 93. Then it was the Rockets 94, 95. And then Chicago did it again in 96, 97, 98.
So I'm thinking that was the only one you missed there was Chicago. But, yeah, it hasn't really been done in so many years. And this is what LeBron wanted to do. With the not 5, not 6, not 7.
Oh, my God. Well, it had that potential in Miami, but it certainly isn't going to do it with Cleveland, especially when you have teammates that don't understand how much time is left on the clock.
I was trying. The meme I had seen online that I laughed at was, JR, what were you doing? I was trying to pass it to Kyrie. He's in Boston!
Oh, my goodness. I really wanted Cleveland to win that series, but the best thing that came out of that were the memes. On one, I was actually, I can't remember. I was at a shoe store somewhere, and one of the people working there showed me a clip of JR like taking the ball and dribbling it all the way to a liquor store.
Yes, I saw. I had seen a kid, or it was a meme similar to that, but it was a kid shooting a free throw, missing it, and then just dribbling it all the way to a candy store or something like that. Come on, JR, you're better than that.
He really is, but it's not the first time he's done that. I think when he was in New York.
Those were the days. New York Knicks, J.R. Smith.
Even more clueless than he was in that sequence. I mean, apparently he thought they were down by 3 and took a 3 when all he had to do was all he needed was 2. I think there was another occasion where he did that, but it's one thing if it was like a one-time thing, like, okay, you know what? Everyone has their dumb moments in sports. I mean, Chris Webber, for instance. No one diminishes Chris Webber for accidentally calling a timeout. I mean, saying that he's a dumb player. He was huge part of that Fab Five. So he gets ridiculed for it, but no one, I don't think, diminishes his playing career.
Right.
But with JR, this has happened 2 or 3 times. I mean, it's you kind of have a pattern here. It's like if you do it once, you're like, okay, that's fine. And other times, it's the regular season, but it's game 1 of the NBA Finals where you could have stolen a game on the road at Oracle.
And tacos. Plug the Taco Bell.
There we go. It's just insane. But anyway, going back to LeBron, yeah, you're not going to get a super team when you have. Who was the other one? George Hill, and Kevin Love used to be kind of a star. I don't really know what happened to him. So it's just that combination. And so it's just not going to do that. And that's going back to the question of are they a dynasty? 3 or 4. I mean, I don't like it. I mean, I think the NBA, as much as I love the NBA, it does sometimes have an issue with not having parity, being way too predictable. I mean, you could have said the season started last year on October 31st. You could have said, oh, what's the finals going to be? Golden State and Cleveland. Who's going to win? Golden State. And look at that. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself all season, at least one of these two are not going to make it. At least one. Both got to Game 7, but the predictable outcome happened. So, going off of what's next for Golden State, like we said, just keep winning. What's next for Cleveland? That's the next talking point in this super podcast. Just like Super Team, Super Podcast.
Just to, I don't know, pray like 1,000,000 times and just beg LeBron on hands and knees, please don't leave. Just don't leave us, please, LeBron. We'll get you a nice big statue. We'll get you an even bigger banner than you already have. Please don't leave. Please don't leave. Everything else doesn't matter because I think, I mean, they do have the number 8 overall pick, and I mean, players they could get. I mean, you could get a Trae Young or a Michael Porter, but are any of those guys going to replace LeBron? I mean, that's not even. I mean, it's not even a question. That's that's all that Cleveland should be thinking about, hoping against hope that LeBron doesn't leave. But since that's probably not going to happen, they're kind of in trouble.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you there as well. That LeBron, they got to sign him, or else this team is stick a fork in them. They're done. They do look like an okay like Piston. You know what I mean? Like the Pistons are now. I think they'd be like that without LeBron, and if they kept everybody. But you know that if LeBron goes, they're not going to keep everybody else. Everybody else is going to want to jump ship, and they're going to have to rebuild from the ground up once again.
House of Cards, total House of Cards.
Mm-hmm. Which I've never seen that show on Netflix before, but that seems
I've not either.
interesting.
Actually, it was interesting. I never knew this. It was actually based on a British show. It's not actually from America. It was a British book. Then it was actually talking about someone moving up the ranks in British Parliament. So a little House of Card fact there.
There you go to the Netflix fans out there. Your random House of Cards fact of the Tom Greene podcast.
Never know what you're going to learn on this show.
Exactly, which is why you at home need to listen. Now this one will just be on Google Docs, so Google Drive actually, because I don't have an actual platform for these shows. I just use Google Drive, but don't be afraid to hit the link, and you'll get some great content from us. So, what's next for Cleveland? Pray that LeBron was going to stay, which brings us to our next question. The big 2 free agents so far in this cycle. LeBron and Kawhi. Where do they end up?
For Kawhi.
Like I said on the sound check, I do sound checks before I get guests over the phone. We ask the tough questions here on the Tom Greene program. Not like TV5 tough questions. Shameless pull the TV5, but we ask actual tough questions here.
Well, what's next for Kawhi?
He's stunned by me just saying that.
Right. His preferred destination. I heard, I'm seeing a lot of reports. His preferred destination is to go to the Lakers. But I have a hard time believing that Popovich is going to want to trade Kawhi Leonard to a huge rival. And, they might try to entice him with a Brandon Ingram or a Lonzo Ball, but I don't see that happening. I really don't.
Just imagine if Lonzo Ball, which means you would get LeVar Ball, and Greg Popovich were to be on the same team.
I saw a tweet somewhere that I might actually force Greg Popovich an early retirement if he had to deal with LeVar Ball.
And I don't blame him.
I wouldn't blame him at all. Like, if he retired, like, 2 months later after Lonzo got there, I'd be like, totally get it. But going back to the where Kawhi might go, somehow, someway, I really am seeing I think it could potentially happen, a super team of Paul George, LeBron, and Kawhi. I just see that happening. Even though technically Boston has more assets, I mean, they have a lot more draft picks to give up. They could give up like a Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, and that might entice San Antonio a little bit more. But I just feel like that's what LeBron is doing, because you never know. I mean, I know going back to LeBron, I think to ask where Kawhi might go, you're asking where Kawhi might go, you're also asking where LeBron's going to go, because as soon as one domino falls, the other one's going as well, and I just see that as a strong possibility. I mean, there's a lot of maneuvering they have to do, and like I said, I don't think Popovich probably doesn't want to give away to a huge rival, but if the Lakers are able to give him a decent package, as unlikely as it is, that's what I see happening. I really do. So so it kind of answers where I think LeBron's going to go. I just think he's going to the Lakers.
So I really don't see where else Kawhi could go than the Lakers for now. But the fact that Kawhi has said he wants out is going to draw a lot of interest from other teams. I had heard that Boston had called San Antonio about a package for Kawhi back when he was hurt towards the trade deadline.
Yep.
I had also heard, of course, all the Lakers talk, along with the PG and LeBron thing, which that means the Lakers would probably be rated either PG-13, R, or X if Paul George goes to the Lakers, if you know what I mean. Because PG-13, Paul George. Of course. With Tom comes dad jokes, too, sometimes.
Nothing wrong with that. There's actually that Twitter, again, speaking of Twitter shout-outs, there's a guy I like on Twitter. All it is nothing but dad jokes, and they have a picture of Bob Saget from Full House. Oh, it's a blast.
So, I see right now, I say Kawhi to the Lakers as well. As for LeBron, as much as this would probably screw up the team, I'd love to see the process be completed. Complete the process! Philly wants LeBron! As you see, sometimes I can be a part of crazy stuff on that Twitter. And I guess you can associate me with that group. Philly wants LeBron!
I don't know. I mean, Philly's fans are pretty. I mean, I think I saw it during like the Super Bowl when they're celebrating the Super Bowl. Someone was actually eating horse crap.
You can't believe it. They haven't won a championship since 2008. Oh wait, I'm from a market that also hasn't won a championship since 2008. Just see what that would happen if.
Wah, wah.
But yeah, right now I would love to see LeBron go to Philly, but I don't think it's going to happen.
There's only one scenario where I could potentially see that happening.
Okay.
As you know, one of the more entertaining stories of the offseason, and also the most unexpected, was the whole Brian Colangelo and the burner account. Burnergate.
Burnergate.
Good old Burnergate. And I guess apparently, which found out was his wife that was running those accounts, and he recently was axed. But there's actually a GM that's looking for a gig that LeBron might know. A man by the name of Chris Griffin.
Okay.
Chris Griffin was the general manager that was responsible for constructing that championship for Cleveland in 2016.
Okay.
He's the one that brought in Iman Shumpert, going back to JR, but at the time that was a very good trade. Very good pickup. He got the Kevin Love trade going, and he I know you could. A lot of people, when you have LeBron on the team, you have a very good chance of winning a championship. But
now we're not talking about this Chris Griffin, right?
Where'd you get a cannon like that, kid?
I work out my right arm 3 times a day.
Like that Chris Griffin?
Oh, who was that?
Chris Griffin from Family Guy.
Oh,
I
of
work out my
course.
right arm 3 times a day.
Oh.
You knew I had to do that.
If you asked a lot of Philly fans, that's probably how they felt Brian Colangelo was when they making moving in that Markelle Fultz trade, which was great at the time. But I mean, my God, the guy was like having issues with like his shoulder, and he was changing his shot, and he only played like 3 games.
Yeah, the thing was they traded for a guy who was on a 9-win team in college. Washington, UW only won 9 games the season before Fultz got drafted number 1.
Yeah,
that speaks a lot about not only Fultz, but Washington Husky basketball, too.
Yeah, it definitely does. But, I mean, you could probably argue that Markelle Fultz was responsible for 9 of those. I mean, that's not really saying much. But, I mean, he did look talented in college, but just that situation, just that bizarre story with him, like, changing his shot. I mean, that was really poorly handled by the Philly brass. So anyway, going back to the GM. So if the Sixers hire Chris Griffin, he has a relationship with LeBron. I mean, LeBron, one of the reasons why they think LeBron might leave is he's, big surprise. He has kind of not the best relationship with Dan Gilbert, the one that called him the so-called king in that letter when he left the first time. When Dan Gilbert got rid of Chris Griffin, and he was working on a trade to get Jimmy Butler at the time he fired Chris Griffin. Could have got Jimmy Butler on that team. Fired him.
Ooh, that you'd have had some championships there with Butler, but
totally botched it. So, and
yep.
LeBron was not happy when they got rid of Chris Griffin. So if Philly happens to pick up Griffin to be the GM, gives LeBron another reason to want to go there. The fit still might be a little bit off because I can't see Simmons and LeBron fitting, but I might entice him.
Yeah, and yes, with Simmons, who should have been in the All-Star game, by the way, it would mess up some stuff in the process, but who knows? Completing the process is really all that matters when it comes to winning a championship. So you say depends on the GM, on LeBron, but you're thinking Lakers?
I really do. I think he wants to form that super team.
And I'm thinking Sixers because I'm kind of crazy like that, but wouldn't that just spark the Philly-Boston rivalry? And that rivalry seems to be coming back, but just think if LeBron went to Philly, that Philly-Boston rivalry. Woo-hoo-hoo.
That would be a great rivalry, but you know what would also be crazy? A Lakers-Celtics finals, LeBron versus Kyrie.
That I could see as well.
That would be amazing.
Does LeBron get his revenge on Kyrie, or does Kyrie get his revenge on LeBron? That finals would be epic. But LeBron would have to get by Golden State.
That he would.
And the Spurs, which have been even more of a nemesis to him than Golden State, at least historically.
He lost in the finals twice. Got swept in 2007, and then his last
14.
game at the Heat was against the Spurs in that 2014 finals.
Yep. And so, with that being said, a lot of what's next questions answered. We hit the coaching carousel real quick. This, unlike last season, the coaching carousel did not even run, as there were 0 NBA coaching changes last year. But this year, almost half the league. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 coaching changes. So not quite half the league, but a third of the league, just about. And let's go over them. We'll kind of go rapid fire on this to see how you think he would coach in his new spot, and then we'll focus on draft stuff more. So, coaching carousel. Igor Kokoshkov, Phoenix. How do you think he's going to do?
Igor Kokoshka. I know he has. I can't remember his resume off the top of my head, but I know he was very successful playing European in the Euro leagues. And I think he was the first actual European national who was coaching in Europe to be the head coach. So then he got a lot of good stuff said about him, and hopefully goes better than David Blatt. David Blatt used to coach in Europe, but he was from here, so it'd be interesting. I don't. And with Phoenix, they got the number 1 pick, and got Justin Jackson as a talented player. You got Devin Booker, who the Pistons should have drafted, and it's just good set of guys. That's potential.
Yeah, I think he'll do fine, but of course it's going to be a long process, just like the Sixers with Phoenix. Man, without Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni, they just haven't been there. So, next up, Lloyd Pierce taking over for Budenholzer in Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta's got a lot of rebuilding to go. Doesn't really matter who is in there right now. I've also heard he's a good young coach, but same with Phoenix. Phoenix has a little more pieces than Atlanta. They're kind of at the bottom. They're rebuilding. They got an early draft pick. We'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not too optimistic about that hire either, and it's not because of the hire, it's because of the situation. Next, walking in Memphis, or so it seems, J.B. Bickerstaff.
Memphis has been really has made some peculiar decisions as far as their coaching. They had great coach in Lionel Hollins, had was a very successful coach, got rid of him. Then they brought in David Yeager, who was also successful. Then he got ousted, went to Sacramento. And then Dave Fitzdale, very talented coach, got rid of him.
I know it doesn't. I guess I'll make this comparison. Aren't the Grizzlies like the A's? Grizzlies basketball like A's baseball.
I could. Well, where do you see the connection? Out of curiosity.
They groom talent. They become very well. They play great, and then all of a sudden, Billy Beane decides to trade them for no reason.
Yeah, I can see that. We know the Paul Gasol trade, which basically helped the Lakers, right? Which basically helped the Lakers win that title in 08 and 09. They lost to Boston that year, but they won a year later. And the most successful player that they had was Zach Randolph, who just had a complete resurgence for 3 or 4 years, because before he was always kind of known as a player that was always talented, but kind of was always below the potential he could have had. So that you might be onto something on the talent that they have. One interesting name, they actually just hired former Piston Jerry Stackhouse to be one of the assistants, and he was also a name that was of interest when the Pistons were looking for a coach.
Yep.
Because he was very successful in Toronto for the Toronto G League team. His first year there, they won the G League title.
That tells you something. So Bickerstaff, will he succeed, or is it another victim of the system?
They still got Marc Gasol there, but he's probably nearing the end of his career. There really isn't. See what they get in the draft. there's not really a lot of, there's for optimism. There's not a whole lot. But that's what's tough. I mean, in the NBA, you have 4 teams that are contenders to win the championship, and then you have the rest of them.
Yep.
And Memphis just happens to be like most teams.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think Bickerstaff will be all right, but I don't have very much optimism as well. That Memphis might want to enjoy the barbecue a little more. Might want a barbecue a little sweeter. James Borrego in Charlotte.
That one of the hires, he's kind of off the Greg Popovich tree, which immediately gets you credibility. So, and I mean, they still got Kemba. I mean, unless Kemba leaves, got Dwight Howard. Might be a 4 or 5 seed. Certainly got a lot of potential. But like I said, there's 3 or 4 teams, and there's just the rest of them. So they might be a very good team, potential playoff team. But other than that, you'll see what happens. Like I said, anyone who coached with Popovich gets credibility in my book.
And of course, you hear this when you hear Popovich.
Having fun yet? I need a little bit more dose of nasty. I'm seeing a little bit of unconfident, a little hesitation. It's not supposed to be easy. Every round gets tougher. Penetrate hard. Good passes. Shoot with confidence. I want some nasty.
That's right. I want some nasty.
I love Pop.
I had to bring that up. That one will be interesting as Buzz City is still looking for that playoff appearance and for the first time in just a couple of years. They miss Jeremy Lin. Mike Budenholzer going from Atlanta to Milwaukee.
Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's pretty much all I need to say about Milwaukee.
The Greek Freak.
The Greek Freak. I mean, and he's a much, much better upgrade as opposed to Jason Kidd, who intentionally spills water on the court to try to get an extra timeout. And overall, kind of a scumbag. So anyone's an upgrade over him. And I mean, Budenholzer was also from the Greg Popovich tree, and that's pretty good Atlanta teams until last year, of course. But before that, he actually had. I mean, I can't remember the year. It might have been 2015. They were like number 1 seed. The Atlanta Hawks were a number 1 seed under Coach Budenholzer. If he can do that with that roster, he could. I can't wait to see what he can do with Giannis.
Yeah, I really like this hire because they're ready. They have a team that's ready for the postseason, and they have a coach that's won in the postseason. Now, of course, not to the effect of LeBron and Golden State winning, but still has won in the postseason. So once again,
I want some nasty.
What was that?
I want some nasty.
David Fitzdale to the Knicks.
Speaking of good old, poor old Dave. Well, maybe then, they got Kristaps.
Porzingis.
See if he keeps showing how great of a player that he can be. I mean, there was a slim chance that people are talking about LeBron might going there, wanting to team up with Kristaps, and then maybe even Chris Paul going there. But Fizdale's a very, very talented coach. Hopefully he's not another victim of the James Dolan franchise that seems to rack up a lot of them.
Wasn't it a coincidence that James Dolan's franchise started going down when the Dolan meme became popular? Dolan, please. Dolan, please.
I mean, anybody that hires Isaiah Thomas to run your franchise for as long as he did, and then when they fire him, kept him on as an advisor, and then someone who has a history of sexual harassment, becomes the GM for the New York Liberty, who also are owned by James Dolan. I mean, that's all you need to know. And the fact that he kicked out Charles Oakley, a great Knick last year, kicked him out of Madison Square Garden. That's all that needs to be said about James Dolan.
And the Quagmire quote remains true, and I'll play that.
In about an hour, I'm gonna piss away 20 grand.
What, are you going to bet on the Knicks? I'm sorry. I mean, how often? I mean, oh man, nobody thinks that's funny?
Well, we do.
Well, hopefully, like I said, I want to see the Knicks be competitive. I mean,
Yes.
Madison Square Garden is one of the best stadiums in all sports. I mean, you want to see that place rocking.
Yeah.
Being successful. So,
I mean, I would like to see the Knicks good too, but hopefully Fitzdale will be the guy that brings it in. Let's go Steve Clifford to the Magic. Will he be magical?
Steve Clifford. Oh man. I mean, I don't know why he was fired in Charlotte. They were before he got to Charlotte. That team was a train wreck. I think that one lockout short season, they have the worst winning percentage in NBA history.
Yeah, either second worst or worst. I do remember that. They won their first 3 games, and then they lost just about the rest of them.
They really did. They would just going back to New York, but just like New York, they go just through countless number of coaches, and he was the one consistent coach and actually had some success, especially for a Michael Jordan ran franchise, which is great of a player as he was. I mean, that goes without saying. His track record as making personnel decisions leave a lot to be desired.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that was able to get some success with Jordan. I mean, I know he wasn't running the franchise, but he's the owner. It says a lot. And I mean, with Orlando, I mean, they got Aaron Gordon. That's about it.
City.
I mean, they got Mario Hezonja, who, I mean, had a little bit of an improvement, but I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but you have 4 teams that are going to be legit contenders, and then you have the rest of the league, and that's just Orlando. There's just nothing that tells me that they're going to do anything for the next couple of years, unless they get a nice draft pick.
Yeah, I thought Frank Vogel was a very good coach, but unfortunately he just couldn't do anything with the Magic, and let's hope that's not the case for Steve Clifford here, but yikes, you're onto something there with 4 competitors and 26 others. And unfortunately, every single one of these coaches are amongst one of the others.
Well, at least Budenholzer's got Giannis and Fitzdale's got Porzingis. They're probably the ones that are the luckiest of the bunch.
Mm-hmm. 2 to go, and the next to last one will be Nick Nurse in Toronto. Well, is he the nurse that helps Toronto beat LeBron? I think we know the answer to this.
Well, the thing about Nick Nurse, I know we're going to talk about this higher next, but
He is not a nurse.
No, he was one of the big reasons why the Raptors had his very successful offense. He completely restructured their offense, and they had one of the top offenses in the league. And part of it was because of Nick Nurse. And when KC was hired for the Pistons, I was hoping desperately that he would bring along Nick Nurse as an assistant to help with Detroit. But nope, Nurse got the call up and is now the new head coach. And Toronto's got to still have a good team, and they're still owned by LeBron James. So unless they do a little bit of retooling, they're going to probably just still be what Toronto usually is, a very successful regular season team, but can't do squat in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same way there on Nurse. I mean, great offense, but if you can't show up in the playoffs against LeBron, bringing up memes again. Raptors in the regular season, T-Rex. Raptors in the playoffs. Bernie!
The one meme I really loved was they showed a picture of a meteor with LeBron James's face with a bunch of raptors surrounding it.
Yep.
And it's true. He owns that team. Similar to how Jordan owned the Cavs, Ron owns the Raptors.
Mm-hmm. So I think Toronto will be a good team, but who knows? If they can't beat LeBron, then people in Toronto will think it was a failure. So finally, the moment we've all been waiting for, Dwayne Casey to Detroit.
Yeah, good old Mr. Dwayne Casey. Yeah, I mean, he was picked as NBA Coach of the Year at 59 win team,
which is a great feat.
It was a great feat, and a lot of people forget this. He was actually one of the. It's funny going back to he has a hard time beating LeBron as head coach, but when he was with Dallas in 2011, he was one of the assistants that helped with that defense that stopped the Miami Heat's first trip to the finals with LeBron James. He was a huge part of that, and I mean he rebuilt Toronto from scratch.
Yeah.
I mean he's known more for his defense, and that's one area the Pistons didn't really have a lot of issues with. It was their offense. Granted, a lot of it was because Reggie Jackson was hurt for a lot of the year, and that's where they run the majority of their offenses. Through the pick and roll with him and Drummond, and they tried to help that with the Blake Griffin trade to no avail.
Yeah.
So in that respect, there really isn't necessarily an upgrade from Stan to Casey because they're both more defensive-minded coaches. The only way that I could see him as a potential upgrade, what is crucial for the Pistons to do anything and be successful, is they really need to develop the younger players that they have. That was something that Stan Van Gundy always struggled with. Well, Stanley Johnson, who he's shown a lot of promise as a defender, but he had him way too many times up in the perimeter. He's more of an inside scorer. Luke Kennard, sadly, will probably always be known as the guy that wasn't picked.
And which brings me up to this point. Another meme. We got Dennis Smith Jr. We got Donovan Mitchell. We got Luke Kennard. What's this?
I got 5 pieces of candy. I got a chocolate bar. I got a quarter. I got a rock.
Am I right?
Pretty much, but and the thing with Kennard, he didn't have that bad of a rookie year. He has a great shot. His defense needs a little bit of work, but it's hard to look at him play and then you see Donovan Mitchell and what they did. But with Casey, the most important thing he needs to do, other than make the offense work with our big three, quote unquote, of Reggie, Blake, and Drummond, need to get some development from Stanley, from Luke, and even Henry Ellison, who he was the pick year prior.
Yep.
Dan hardly ever played him. So if the Pistons are going to do anything, they need to develop those guys, along with creating that offense. So it's, as a diehard Pistons fan, you hope for the best. I don't know how high of a ceiling they have. They kind of make me think of Charlotte. A lot of talented players, but do they have that high of a ceiling? Probably not. Yeah. They need a lot of things to go right. You need Blake to stay healthy, which last couple of years he hasn't been healthy. You need Reggie to stay healthy, which again he hasn't shown he could do the last couple of years. Drummond had a very good year last year. If he can keep improving, and I know I saw on Twitter he's working on his perimeter shots, which is encouraging / frightening because I don't want him to become like a Josh Smith and just hacking up shots that clank and build brick houses.
That's when we actually believed in Stan Van Gundy, because when we got rid of Josh Smith, we then went into fighting for a playoff spot after starting 5-23.
I do remember that season. They formed the wall. They
Yep.
formed that wall. That was a fun season. It was a shame that Brandon Jennings went down like that, because that was a really fun season.
Mm-hmm.
But as going back to Casey, he has a great track record. See what he can do.
Yep, I'm really all for this hire because of his track record in the regular season. Now, he hasn't beaten LeBron, but I'd rather be at where Dwayne Casey is and have a good team, a very good team that just can't beat LeBron, rather than a poor team like Detroit, unfortunately, has. So,
ouch, that hurts.
I know it, and I only say poor because look at what Golden State is doing. Look at Cleveland. Look at San Antonio, even though they've had problems with Kawhi. Look at Boston. Detroit is poor compared to that.
Oh, no, there's no question. They have talented pieces, but like I said, they haven't been able to prove that they can fit together, and they can't stay healthy, and the young players we do have haven't properly developed yet.
Mm-hmm. So, last question before we wrap things up, which this has probably been the longest show I've done on this show, but we all enjoy Tom Greene and Ben Probst content. Draft. I guess we'll go who's going number one and who's going to be the surprise of the draft.
Surprise of the draft. Well, I mean, I think I'm trying to think of his for Phoenix. It's going to be DeAndre Ayton, unless I know we were.
Yeah,
talking
that really should have been the question I would ask would be, is there any way Phoenix drafts anyone other than DeAndre Ayton? Pick number one.
The only way they might not, and I know we discussed this before we started recording, according to Legion Hoops, also through Kevin O'Connor, NBA, the Suns were looking to potentially trade their number one pick to get Kawhi Leonard. Unless that happens, which I don't think it will, because I don't know why they would Kawhi stay with that team? Not very likely. Other than that, unless they do that, unless they package the number one pick, it's going to be Ayton, hands down.
Yep. Yeah, I think Ayton's going to get drafted number one. I'm kind of old school, and I will say that I think it was a bit of a mistake for Michael Porter Jr. and Trae Young to go, because they still need more development in my eyes. But hey, I'm old school, and this is a play now type of league, so I don't blame Young and Porter for leaving, but I think they needed a little more development. So Ayton, number one draft pick. The same with Bamba. I think Bamba should have stayed another year. But surprise of the draft. Who's going to be the guy that we're not really talking about that much? It's going to make an impact almost right away.
That's I know a lot of people aren't talking about as much about Miles Bridges. I mean, he's kind of more like middle of the round draft pick. He might be able to do some things. And I mean, if and when LeBron leaves, that'd be a good spot for him to potentially go to that 8th spot. I guess maybe just going with a little MSU connection, just Michigan connection in general. Miles Bridges.
You're going to go Miles Bridges? I'm going to go on a bit of a limb and say Wagner. And that's because I've watched this man throughout his career. He's gonna do a great job in the NBA. Wish he'd have stayed for his senior year, but again, that's just me being old school to see if he can win a title with Michigan. But he's gonna do well. Right now, projected to Dallas at 33 and play alongside Dirk, which has been his childhood dream, and I could see that happening. But Mo Wagner, watch out for him. Watch out for him, because this guy's going to be well. And in this draft, I see Detroit drafting Javon Carter from West Virginia. I'd like to see him draft either him or DeAnthony Melton, perhaps Keita Bates-Diop, or Alonzo Trier, perhaps. So just.
Absolutely. As a Pistons fan, it's depressing to discuss the draft because I was hoping. I mean, I remember a month ago when the lottery. When they were doing the lottery, I was hoping against hope that 3% that the Pistons had to keep their pick because when they traded away Blake, they had a top 3 or 4 protected picks. Hoping against hope that they'd keep it, and since the Pistons have absolutely no luck as far as draft order,
right,
didn't get it. So I mean, for a second round pick, I mean I don't know if there's anybody that's gonna just being like immediate impact for them. Is just going to be someone that they're going to have to develop, unless they luck into a Draymond Green, or I mean even it's funny enough. Stan Van Gundy's first year, they didn't have a second round draft pick, and that funny enough that probably ended up being the best pick of his entire career as the Pistons executive in Spencer Dinwiddie. And the only reason we say that now is because he had a massive improvement in Brooklyn. Played great. I'd love for the Pistons to get him back somehow, some way.
Right.
But I don't think Brooklyn's going to do that. That team up of Russell and Spencer is too enticing for them to give up that potential. But as a Pistons fan, I'd love that. So, but the draft, it's tough. It's gonna be tough to watch.
Yeah.
Because it's so deep, and Pistons are just gonna be stuck with such a second round draft pick. But a lot of good players, and it's still gonna be an interesting draft. And that's I've always said the NBA offseason is just about as entertaining as the regular season and the playoffs. I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah.
The stories that happen.
Of course. So we covered a lot here in almost 58 minutes of content. I can't believe it went this long, but hey, it's always good to have much more content rather than much less. So he went with Miles Bridges as the sleeper pick. I went with Mo Wagner, a little Michigan versus Michigan State rivalry there. Go blue, not green. So he knows me too well. Go blue, not green. Even though my last name is Greene. I tell people my last name is Greene, but I'm consistent of maize and blue.
There we go. That is absolutely true. As well as absolutely true.
So he is Ben Probst, and I am Tom Greene. And once again, our shout-outs tonight were Audra Martin, Heather Park, Trevor Thompson, Matt Shepard, Meredith Marakovitz. Follow them on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Follow Ben on Twitter. And if you ever want to get on a show, all you have to do is send me a tweet at TomTV23. We'll get talking. We can do stuff. I've had guests in studio as well as over the phone, and this guest is over the phone. As I've had most of my big-time guests over the phone. So thanks so much, Ben, for being on the show. My last question is there anything else you would like to add to this podcast?
Well, I appreciate you having me on. This was fun. I always have fun, talking sports with anybody. But it's fun that, getting to do a podcast. I've listened to countless podcasts, and I feel honored to be a part of this one. This is amazing. This is a good time.
Oh yes. We just hope that someday either Apple or someone else will pick us up. So he has been Probst, I am Tom Greene, and this has been another great edition of the Tom Greene Podcast, NBA edition. We'll have future podcasts from NBA, NHL, all that stuff coming in the future. So this has been the Tom Greene Show. Peace out.